Good evening. On behalf of the Aga Khan program at the GSD, on behalf of the RAP group who's sponsoring the reception after the lecture, I welcome you all to the third annual Aga Khan public lecture at the GSD. This annual event is intended to bring to the school's public platform a prominent designer from the Middle East and the Muslim world who engages contemporary issues facing the built environment and who, through his or her work, opens up a dialogue that transcends the regional and the local. The first Aga Khan public lecture was delivered by Iraqi architect Zaha Hadid. The second was by Turkish architect Han Tumertekin. And I am very pleased to present the third lecture by my old friend and colleague, our old friend and colleague, Jordanian architect Sahel Al Hiyari. Sahel Al Hiyari is the principal architect at Sahel Al Hiyari and Partners based in Amman, Jordan. He holds a bachelor's degree in architecture and fine arts from the Rhode Island School of Design, a master of architecture and urban design from the GSD, and then he carried out his postgraduate work at the School of Architecture at the University of Venice, where he also taught from 1993 to 1995. Sahel Al Hiyari is also an accomplished painter whose work has been exhibited in Jordan, Lebanon, and in Italy. In 2002, Sahel Al Hiyari was chosen as the first architect to receive the Rolex Mentorship and Protégé Arts Initiative Award, according to which he has been a protégé of architect Alvaro Siza for 1 year. His work has subsequently been published in a number of local and international architectural publications and was selected as one of the vanguard architects for architectural record in 2004. His work has also been exhibited widely in Jordan, Lebanon, Italy, and the United States. He has also lectured at the Jordan University of Science and Technology, at Columbia University, and as part of the Aga Khan platform in the UAE. He has served as a reviewer for the Aga Khan Award of Architecture since 2004 and is currently member of the master jury of the award cycle. If one looks into the work of Sahel Al Hiyari and through its personal intricacies, one may find traces of this long trajectory from RISD to Harvard to Siza, Venice. But these traces, which we all like to find as a way of affiliating ourselves with his beautiful work, to claim that we are very much part of it, are deceptive, because Sahel keeps all these influences at bay, favoring a more removed but for that strongly engaged relationship with the discipline and the profession at large. Allow me a scenic detour to attempt an explanation. The Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, where Sahel grew up and where he practices, rather from where he practices, may not appear to play a central role in the cultural life of the Arab world. It is seen by many as a spillover state, a spillover of the Hashemites, no relationship, from the early century, who came from Arabia with T.E. Lawrence in the 1920s, and established a small kingdom in the Transjordan region. Then a spillover of the Palestinians after 1948 and the Arab-Israeli War, and most recently a spillover of Iraqis from the successive Gulf Wars. With the exception of the occasional appearances of Petra as a Hollywood backdrop, of the cameo appearance by then Prince, now King Abdullah on Star Trek Voyager, and with the exception of the faces of Queen Noor and now Queen Rania as the proof that Arab women actually have a face, Jordan has failed to secure its own place in the social imaginary of the West as a place of cultural production. These misconceptions about Jordan could be easily dismissed on their own terms, but it suffices to examine the wealth of architectural production in Jordan since the 1920s and the impact of its architectural discourse over the Arab world to also question the very relationship that we have established between place and cultural production. The idea that culture only flourishes in particular places and in a cumulative way over time. As the capital city of Jordan, Amman has grown exponentially to absorb these large waves of immigrants, and they have shaped this country's short history. In terms of architecture, two extreme but complementary types of practice have emerged in response to this huge construction demand. On the one hand, we have mega production firms like Dar al-Handasa that have emerged during this period, which is today actually one of the largest architectural practices in the world. And on the other, the smaller offices, people like Jafar Tuan, Rasim Badran, whose early work consisted mostly of villas for Amman's educated elite, and it's a rather educated and rather large elite, and who Realizing the burden of building identity from scratch in such a context, but also the difficulty within the political setting of addressing the very question of identity politically, turned their architectural explorations into a platform for creating a larger Arab identity, perhaps against the direction that Jordan was taking at the time. It was only through architecture that such questions could be asked. Their discourse was powerful enough to rally around it a group of Arab architects from the Maghreb to the Far East, and then to turn Amman into a central platform of the debate about architecture and its identity. If today the likes of Jafar Tuan and Badran have joined the ranks of the larger corporate firms and have become consumed by the very rhetoric about identity that they have generated, they helped generate, this contemplative platform that they have created has been established and now taken over by a new generation led by Sahel Al Hiyari and a group of younger architects around the Center for the Study of Built Environment, as well as others. And this group have expanded the discussion of identity to address the identity and of the discipline and the profession at large. One of the many compliments that Alvaro Siza has made about Sahel Al Hiyari's work resonates in my mind the most. Siza says about Sahel that he truly cares about and feels responsible towards his profession. In order to effect change, the professions, especially architecture, are beginning to defrost their technical discourses and to ask fundamental questions about their place in relation to society, practice, the environment. And the more diverse the settings from which these questions are being asked, the more effective the revisions will be. This is the balance that Sahel's practice seeks to strike. Immersing himself so dexterously in the exigencies of contract, site, construction, budget, and craft, but also withdrawing to contemplate through the particularities of his experience about the relationships that are so fundamental to the power of form between archetype and prototype, about the re-empowerment of the discipline of the plan, which he beautifully renders, about the masterful reintroduction of symmetry into architecture, about the role of form in reshaping geography. In order to be engaged, to be RISD, to be Harvard, to be Arab, to be Siza, to be contemporary, Sahel's work tells us the architect has to be critically disengaged, and above all, he has to be himself, so uniquely himself. For all of that, and for the sheer pleasure of having him back at the GSD, please join me in welcoming Sahel Al Hiyari himself.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here, to be back. I'm very honored as well. Tonight I will present 9 projects that attempt to tackle and interact with the context and conditions of architectural practice in the Middle East in general and in Jordan in specific, where most of my work is located. I can say about working there that since its early human settlements, the Middle East has been and still is a context of change, radical change and constant change, with a great diversity amongst its parts. The region's political, economic, and social cultural forces are perpetually shifting, and they're creating a reality that cannot be classified in a coherent manner. And it is this incoherency that has become a prevalent force that shapes the architecture and the urbanism of the area. Being in Jordan and being surrounded by wars and political economic instability has forced architectural production to become a sheer reaction or a reflex to that needs to address turbulences and to accommodate catastrophes, basically. Architectural production is also made more complex with the will to connect to the world, which is a trait of our culture, basically, that has created magnificent examples of architecture through Today the trait has been turned into a struggle that attempts to grapple with a neutralizing wave of globalization and the perpetuation of of a local identity. And architecture in the region has not been able to internalize such a struggle. And basically what's being produced at the moment in the Middle East are two approaches that consolidate both aspects. One, which is a modernity cloaked in tradition, and another one, it's a modernity implanted without negotiating the context. Coupled with this is the substandard qualities of construction in the Middle East, which really problematize the practice and creates and exasperates the difficulties it creates many more difficulties that actually threaten the future of the practice. It is such conditions and such problematic context that provides the interest to establish practice for myself in Jordan. The ongoing frantic change and unpredictable change is accepted and exploited in order to achieve a certain transformation and development. My practice actually establishes connections with such forces, and by doing so, the projects tend to distance themselves from a predetermined or preconceived method, which often render architecture as their illustrations. Assimilation of the context of work becomes a key factor in my project. It implies both acceptance and resistance, and not necessarily imitation. It is a process of negotiation, or a sort of filter that depicts changes that are transient and those that are permanent. In this sense, a problematic context is seen as a platform on which transformation and development could be built. Basically, rather than turning away from such problems, we explore and turn the very nature from within. Problematic aspects are not negated, but rather studied and internalized. It is for this reason that most of the projects that we will see, they assume different logics from the peculiar conditions, and there's a big variety in terms of the nature and the scale and even the approach. Yet the work does not passively yield to the given forces. It establishes contrasts and at times contradictions. I would like to start with the slides. This is the first build project. It was my first commission. It's in the Jordan Valley, the southern part of the Jordan Valley in Jordan. It's a favorable setting for winter retreats. It's basically in an area of small farms with a lot of mansions, and the project basically was an addition to an existing structure, a domino plan. Now, this project was used as a tool to understand both the building process and the mentality of the Arab client in Jordan. And it is for this reason that the project was maintained was designed with the typological clarity and simplicity in form and even in construction technique to be able to understand the type of work that could be done in Jordan. So there was a lot of caution in terms of design when I worked on this project. The project is basically an L-shaped buildings enclosing a courtyard, and it's an addition. There's an addition of an upper floor with an outdoor living room, which is this piece here. So, moving from that project to the context of Amman, the urban context of Amman, this is a renovation of a 1950s structure, concrete structure, which is part of an extended family house that dates from the 30s. The main constraint of the project was the budget, which was $15,000 actually to renovate the structure. It's right here, the structure. In this project, after having learned about the construction process in Jordan, what started to occur actually is much more experimentation and experimentation with the substandard qualities that we have and with the low craftsmanship, and actually trying to incorporate that in the design itself. The building itself is fairly small, and the intended use for it is an office for a clinical psychologist. It is the typical concrete box of Amman, which is basically the two spaces with a stair and an upper floor and an entry garden. The facades of the building consisted of an opening and one window, and what we did basically was open two windows and apply a steel structure over the facades that acts as they're basically screens, and they're security for security. They could be padlocked and so on. Part of the idea actually was to incorporate within the plastering steel particles in order to avoid painting the structure. Usually structures as such, they are painted, and they are painted once and left to deteriorate. So here the process has been somehow inversed, and the paint is actually proposed with the material itself. These are like the steel panels that enclose the windows, and the interior of the clinic basically has been left basically with its original materials. The floor, part of the floor is tiles from the 1950s that had been filled with concrete, and the space itself was corrected, and as a result we managed to carve out spaces and basically shelves for storage. And the internal space of the main therapy room has sliding wooden panels that actually enable the user to modulate the light within the space. Such. Fountain roadside vendors basically were used to carve out the bathroom fixtures, which in this case the toilet is made out of stone, simply because the budget would not allow to buy a Philips Stark one. So we had to use fortunately we had to use the local craftsmen for executing such things. And then, you know, the lighting itself, it's all industrial tubing that had been recycled, and with the most generic Chinese fixtures. The upper floor is a private space for the user, and it has been simply designed with the furniture is made out of concrete. It's a bed out of concrete, and this takes me to the next project. This project is a spa in an affluent or disorganized area of Amman called Dabouk. The area has an arrangement of costly mansions, commercial buildings, a military hospital. And the project is intended to be to accommodate a select type of physiotherapy and eclectic, let's say, therapies from China and Russia. The maximum capacity of the project is 30 to 35 clients per day on an area of 4,000 square meters. Now, basically, the main concern of the building was dealing with the issue of setbacks, which are usually 5 meters from 3 sides and about 7 meters or 10 meters from the main street. What was created actually was a building that has the lot has no boundary. The lot has no boundary, and the setback space was given back to the city in a way to create an area that surrounds the building. It's sort of a zone that avoids being a private one, and this was done to give the project a public presence. the internal organization of the building consists of 4 or 8 different therapy spaces. And this was done because of the fact that there is the gender separation in the Middle East. And instead of doing 2 spas within one, we simply designed 8 different apartments where the client would stay there and receive all the treatments in one place. The upper floors are 2 multi-purpose halls that were intended to be used as gyms with laboratories, a lounge, and the building itself is the building. What happens with the building basically is that it's a continuous skin that wraps around the three sides of the road, and the main side basically. Oops. Where am I going? The main side, the core is extracted out of the building, and another rectangular frame is created to indicate an entrance. The core of the building consists of bands of transparent and translucent glass, and the skin of the building consists of a double layer of interlocking marble panels with an inner layer of translucent glass. The idea here was to recall the Umayyad desert fortifications, which were actually used as spas, and they were closed structures that indicated a lot of privacy. The issue of privacy in this space is very important, and it is a recurring theme in the projects we do, that there always has to be protection from the outer realm, the public realm. The interior spaces of the spa, in terms of the circulation wraps around the therapy spaces, and each space has a courtyard to the back and providing light and ventilation. This is the view from the upper part, which is from the gymnasium, and actually these cutouts were created in order to avoid going over the allowable footprints. A lot of design choices in this building are a direct result of the restrictions, the building restrictions and regulations. This is the upper floor, which is the main gymnasium space, and that's the building which is meant to appear as a lantern at night, emanating light from the inside. This house is, we go to the house in an area called Abdoun. Abdoun is actually one of the most expensive areas in Amman, and it's basically characterized by mansions that are not necessarily in proportion with the land lots or with the sizes of the land. And there is a problem here of, again, how to deal with the setback area, which is usually a marginal space, a space that cannot be used, and often the gardens are not of any use, basically. The house is, what we did intentionally was to repeat or even to create the same kind of scale, the repetition of the scale in the proposal as the surrounding buildings, yet with a clear intention to reduce the language in order to create a moment of silence. But I realized that after seeing it, it's not that silent. So what we proposed, actually, since there is no space in the sense of the setback does not provide any outdoor space, was to provide a very large terrace on the top that is connected to a private living room, and the plan is, in contrast to the typical houses in Amman, it's not compartmentalized. It's basically an open plan, and most of the services are placed on an L, in an L shaped in the back. To compensate also for the lack of exterior space or view, we created the interior has been articulated with a central reflecting pool and a double height space directly above it. In section it is like that. Having designed a very open space, it was necessary to maintain the ceilings very low, and then at only one point that ceiling becomes, it doubles in height in order to give a sense of spaciousness to the space. This is the interior of the project, and right now it's under construction, and it is basically very similar. The upper part of the terrace actually was designed as a frame to exclude the lower part of the buildings and to only include the upper parts and the sky. So since there is no real view to look at, we were faced with the surrounding buildings, and the most interesting thing was to actually edit the view itself and to slice it. The next project is in Yemen. It's in an area called Wadi Dahr. It's 20 kilometers west of Sana'a, the capital of Yemen. Of course, the first thing that came to mind was to look at these traditional structures, but we were prohibited actually to do so by the client. The client wanted nothing to do with the vertical structures of Yemen, the vertical houses, and wanted something absolutely on one level, if anything. And there were a lot of requirements in terms of the type of program the house would have. It ranges from a room for artillery to spaces for guards, water storage, etc., because the area as well is very isolated. This is the view from the site. Actually, this is the main view of the site. The site is actually beyond this line. This is the roadway that takes that leads into the site, and we are on the part that has the main view. It's basically this part here between these two hills, and the area is actually all of that. The land is all of this area. Now the idea was to insert a piece within the two hills and to allow the house to have a view from one side and a complete closure from the other side. The idea was basically to echo the nature, basically to devise a geometric figure that is taken and that is designed from the angles of the slope itself. And in plan, basically, it consists of three parts, three layers, one and in two levels, or three levels actually, three levels. The entry level is on the upper floor to the main areas of the house, and then there is a very large garden which faces the gym and the kitchen. The garage is through here. The side of the building is articulated by these cuts, we're taking one of them, for example, here. This is one of the cuts, and it's the ramp that goes down. What happened here? Okay. Oops, I'm sorry. The main spaces of the house, it's basically on one the main spaces are on one level, the living spaces and the different areas for guests and bedrooms, and one part actually faces the view, and another part faces or is located above a series of courtyards, and these are basically the bedrooms, the private spaces, and which is which is the garden. It hovers above the garden, which faces the gym on the lower floor. The approach to the house is as such from this street, and one is to rotate around and to be able to get to the entries of the house. We try to maintain a very low profile and height as well in terms of its location. That's the highest point of the land, and the house actually appears from the other side as a fortified structure. All fenestrations are repressed, and the glazing actually, or the windows, occur from within in the slices. Actually, in each slice there is a window that relates to a different function within, be it a bedroom, a bathroom, etc. So the expression is one which is entirely closed from the outside. Yet the inside, actually experiencing the house, the interiors of the house, it's a very open, and there is actually no volume almost. The volume disappears from the interior. Anyway, the idea actually was to also complete the landscape, and the angles, I did mention that, but the angles were taken from these different slopes and imposed on the volume to create a segmented surface. This is the interior of the space, which is entirely open, and it is directly related to an open terrace outside. And these are this is the pool, the gym area, and the pool, and the lower garden. And right above here, it's all the bedrooms. Now this project is in Amman. This is the Khalid Shoman Foundation. It is an art foundation, a non-profit organization that they call it Darat al-Funun, which is the House of the Arts. And the site itself, it's fairly large. It occupies basically one side of a mountain, and the premise for the project was to devise a new front. There is a main house here, which is the main exhibition space, and since the area has a lot of traffic problems, the main entries, as they were designed for the complex, were not used. Everybody was going up to this side and entering and going down to the foundation. For this reason, it is for this reason that the client actually, I was approached to redesign the wall, which was to serve as a new front for the building and not as a secondary entrance. The site itself is a complex stratifications of historical layers. We have there is a 6th century AD Byzantine church that they discovered during the first, when they renovated the place, and then 3 houses from the 20s. This is the main house, the house from the 20s, and this is the condition of the wall, how it was before we intervened. Basically, the problem was it was a problem of levels A, and the problem of seeing all the roofs of the buildings that were full of water tanks, satellite dishes, etc. So basically, the idea was to completely demolish that and construct something also in concrete, maintaining somehow the material that it was made of. And what's interesting about this place is the passageways. There are a lot of urban passageways, stairs that connect the different levels of the mountains, and there is one entrance off to the side here. The foundation itself has so many entrances, and that was the stair that was mainly used, and there was another requirement, which was to design a garage, but not a garage, some kind of a platform to exhibit this car, which is the car of the late Khalid Shuman, the founder and patron of the foundation. Now, what we did basically was to divert the entry in a way where it's almost non-axial. This way we, as in many Arab cities, the axis is usually is entered from one side and then diverted to another one. It's never direct. So, and we were able to, by doing so, to hide all the roofs of the buildings and to create a tunnel space that is then partitioned here and redirects the visitor to the main parts of the building. The walls themselves consisted of, they were concrete walls that they were then cladded with cinder blocks. That was, but the way the cinder blocks were attached to the wall created protrusions and textures in the walls themselves, and steel was used in order to ensure the quality of plastering, and they were used as guidelines for the plasterers in order to execute the surface, which is highly textured. And the result was it's almost a foreign body, but a foreign body that relates to the two types of construction materials and techniques in the area, which is basically concrete and stone. And the idea was to kind of hybridize both and create this third body that directly relates to both, but is also autonomous and provides this a new front for the project. The corners and entrances were, where this happens actually. Where this happens is it's specifically at the corners and entries of the foundation, and this was to indicate as well the moments within that wall that are more important than others, and the heights actually were determined by the adjacent structures and entry. This is the main entry actually. Beyond that partition, we put this partition because beyond that there are studios, private studios. So the idea was to screen it off. We were working with many restrictions on the site, and the wall could not be also used simply because it had already, when it was built, it had already gone into the street, and we were facing a big risk actually of not having this project built. It is at this moment where the three materials actually come together and then return, and then this space here was completely built up with terraces, with there was a structure here, there was some kind of an awning that we removed to be able to open up the view to Amman. This is a magnificent view actually. The picture does not really give it justice. And the garage, it is funny. The garage, so the late Khalid Shuman's car is contained in this box. Another part of the project actually was an installation for recent discoveries that's within the Khalid Shuman Foundation as well. It's in the main house. We were given recent archaeological artifacts discovered in Petra. They were basically columns and capitals of columns and heads. They found about 30 of them, and they don't know yet exactly what the structure was used for. So the idea, but it was an interesting problem because first of all we had no budget to produce this, literally no budget to produce the exhibition. Another thing, that this building had no security whatsoever, and the pieces were very small and they could have been easily picked up and stolen. So the idea was to build a box the two spaces basically, two boxes. One which was to include, to keep all the smaller pieces within and to keep actually the visitor around the box, and the other one was to provide, we have this long space, but we provide a space that you walk through, but you don't necessarily occupy. It's just a viewing platform that you walk through. To come back to the different other parts of the exhibition, there's a video installation here. And this is the result. It's a box basically that where the viewer is required to sort of calibrate their position in order to see to view these pieces. Quite honestly, archaeological exhibitions, the ones I've seen are not very interesting. So the idea was to put these fragments in a new hole, in a completely new setting, and the idea as well was to here is the protection. So it's a box that was built around the fragments from MDF. It's MDF, the material, and then it's painted black on the outside. The interior is painted red, and that is the result. You get, for example, here spaces that frame parts of the capitals, and then openings where you see the entire capital. The other room had discovered stones from the Thamudic period, and the idea was that to fill the space with sand in order not to have people walk around in the space and touch the stones. And you have two passages that connect to the other side. We come to this project. It's a competition. We entered in one in Kuwait. It is not going to be built. Unfortunately, not going to be built. It's still stuck in the municipality for bizarre reasons. We don't know why. But it's in an area called Nayd al-Ghar, which is an old residential district of Kuwait, located adjacent to Al-Istiqlal Road, one of the main arteries leading to the city, to the downtown area. The brief required loft-type apartments in high-density configurations to develop an adjacent government land, which is in the back. And the design solution consists of a base that acts as a platform for two parallel towers, and a park, which is a community park, intended to be in community park in the back. Now the base is periodically carved by a series of cuts that orchestrate connections between the adjacent streets and the inner courtyard and the back. The idea here is to have an oscillation between complete closure and openness by moving around the structure, and depending where one is moving, actually these cuts allow the flattening of the perspective and allow the base to appear as a much lighter element. Part of the reason was because that the base could not be occupied with commercial activities. We were only allowed 200 square meters of commercial space, and that would have not necessarily worked with us on such a large scale. And so basically the shops, or 200 square meters, were internalized, and then we have a lot of spaces as well that become technical spaces and shafts for ventilation and so on. The main two bodies actually are two lobbies here, and they consist of a series of spaces, seating areas, and then the two cores that take one up to the upper floors, which is in contrast to the organic qualities of the base. It's much more structured, modular, and repetitious. The idea for the apartments was to there are two types of apartments. We have three bedrooms in the middle and 4 bedroom units on the side. And the idea was to create a double height space a double height space at the lower level, and the circulation corridor which appears every other floor, and then the bedrooms that face the courtyard and they sort of straddle the corridor. And in this way we have the living spaces are towards the more open spaces of the project. One of the issues actually was the climate of Kuwait being very hot there. We devised a double facade, a double skin of aluminum panels that are controllable from each apartment. They are rotating panels that can control the light and provide openness and closure to the apartments. This is a view of the lobby, one of the spaces of the lobby, and the courtyard. But the idea here was to that within the repetition and within the structure of the apartments, within that strict repetition, that there would be a variety that occurs through use. And so the facade itself is constantly changing according to use and according to the inhabitants. And the spaces themselves are basically, as opposed to what happens, the idea of luxury in the Middle East is a very complex one, and so what we proposed actually is to somehow provide an alternative in terms of having it just as completely simple space and without too many frills, because there are a lot of frills in the Middle East. This project is a competition in Tripoli. It's in Lebanon. It's in a periphery called Abu Samra. It's in the southwestern boundary of the city, and historically it used to be a very important area of olive groves. The project, the location of the project itself is in a very problematic area, in the sense that it is an area characterized by sprawl and a lot of these housing projects that are spreading rapidly in the area and destroying the landscape. Despite the fact that the project is a religious center with many social functions, the brief specifically places emphasis on the mosque itself, on the mosque proper. And the brief also, it was mandatory to use the courtyard type as a major design criterion. Such requirements combined with the orientation of the land parcel, which is here, and the orientation of the Qibla, which is this side here, created an interesting problem, especially since what was actually allowable to build was 900 square meters, and the program itself was around, the required program went up to 6,000 meters. So the idea was to only have the mosque at the upper level, and then to layer the program horizontally, and to create lower levels with a surrounding patio that acts as a light well. Now the forms here, what we try to do is to mediate between the form of the land, the various entries for men and women, and the direction of the Qibla. Okay. I'll go back to this plan later. Okay, no, I'll go back to this. Sorry. Now, I will start with the lower floors. Actually, what we did was started with the design of the parking structure, and the problem with the parking structure in relationship to the streets was the direction of the Qibla. So what we devised was actually a structural transfer slab which is in the third basement, which actually supports a completely different structure on top, and each floor contains a different function. There is the second basement basically has studios and the library, offices, administration, etc. The first basement has a multi-purpose hall which is meant to double also as a prayer hall during Fridays for the Friday prayers. And then again we go back to the other plan, and then the ground level, which is the main prayer hall and the entries to the complex, and then the mezzanine level basically, which is the prayer hall for the women. So there is a stacking of program as vertical stacking of program. In section basically, the structure, what it does is since these areas on the sides, sorry, this is hard to explain because it was hard to design. Why is this doing this? Okay. How do I start? Okay. Since these areas actually are, what we tried to do was to expand the project as much as possible onto the land, and having exceeded already or having closed the allowable footprint area, what we did was to design this sort of arcade that runs along, and it would consequently not be added in the allowable footprint area because it's not enclosed. It's a shaded structure which, according to the Lebanese law, is not part of the footprint, the allowable footprint. The second layer of the plan is basically the patio, and then the core where you have the central spaces, the prayer halls, multi-purpose hall, etc. The way the project is articulated is by means of a filter of very thin columns. The idea here was, because the brief was very fixed on the idea of providing a landmark building, and a landmark building in that setting actually is extremely difficult given the scale of the surrounding buildings. So what we did, that instead of enlarging or having a very monolithic structure, closed structure, that what we do is actually create a very thin lattice work of columns that allow the space that acts as a filter, creating entries in certain points and closure in other points, yet a sense of continuity and the sense of opening up in the space and closing to actually to separate the different entries of men and women, yet maintaining it continuous. This is the bracing system which holds the two structures together, and it is a space that's not meant to be actually inhabited. It is only seen in one point where you enter when one enters the project or crosses that patio to go into the various programs in the center. Now the materials, it's basically steel and opaque glass, and the interior of the space itself is as well opaque glass. And what we did actually was to extract the mihrab and the minbar and place them in the front row of prayer in order to create this continuous text of Quranic verses, which would be ideally hand painted, and to create no interruptions in the space. And this is what it will appear like at night, basically, quite the opposite. The last project is It's in the south of Jordan. It's in the Petra National. It's in the Petra National Park. The area is adjacent, or the site is adjacent to water treatment plant, which the government has basically initiated projects there for agriculture for the local communities. Now, what happens with Petra actually, that the local community, the Bedouins, were removed from the site itself, and they were placed in some sort of settlements that are really dismal, actually. One group of Bedouins actually refused to do so, and what they did was trade all of their land, which is this land. They traded the land for being able to use it and to use the water from the water treatment plant. And the project is a USAID funded. It's USAID funded. It is intended to be a visitors and awareness center for water issues, water reuse, landscaping also in arid environments, and above all, it is some kind of a public building that they wanted to give back to their community who use it. Now, the main idea of the project comes from, obviously working in Petra has a lot of implications in the sense that we're confronted with the Nabatean history and so on and so forth. And most of the projects that occur in that area directly, they're always in direct reference to that particular period. In this case, what we looked at is the Neolithic structures, which are very common in the area. And it's the period actually where the transitional period from using circular structures to square structures. It is the period actually where the angle starts appearing in architecture. And so we actually refer to that in the geometry of the building we proposed. Now the building, another important thing about the building was the idea that it has to be absolutely low maintenance, because often buildings that are given to the community, they have no budgets for upkeep. And so what we did actually what we did was create a geometry from the interlocking of several circles that kind of deform the circle, and it starts to create edges and corners. There are two objects in the middle of the space, and they are basically the only two requirements were office spaces, a meeting room, and an exhibition space at the bottom. The back layer is actually where all the services are, storage areas, etc. The main approach to the building is through here. There is a ramp that goes up, and then the idea would be to come underneath the building. The structure itself, what it does is peel off the ground to create an entry, and it is basically an open space. It is a sheltered open space. However, that open space was intended to be, it has a double use of congregation space for the community, and exhibition space for landscaping in arid environment. And the materials are basically very simple. It's concrete, and then it's clad with stone from the outside. There is no glass, hardly any windows, a couple of doors. So, et voilà.
Okay. Thank you.
I suppose they do, yeah.
This is the father of my children.
Oh, really?
Well, you guys were dancing at the tavern. It's beautiful, and it was great to sit in there. Beautiful and super intelligent.
What?
I love the wall.
Which wall?
All of them. What do you mean which one? All of them.
You mean the wall outside?
All of the walls, all of the very seca. Rodolfo never does anything. He means that. I mean, I can tell you. When I left last time, I left, I was excited. I never said a good thing.
It has to be enforced at times. It's quite important. So, and it's changing. I mean, you have a lot of the people that are more economic than
Oh, this?
I'm going back, yeah, for some reason. But it's okay. We're done.
What happened?
I can't figure out how to get the speakers on.
Oh, I can do that. But what was going on with this? He said it got stuck in reverse. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can, yeah.
I didn't notice it.